It is your Classic Metal Show right here on theclassicmetalshow.com. That's brand new stuff from Lynch Mob, a tune called Sanctuary, and a guy that is creating the musical sanctuary for all of us to live with lately. It's the multitasker himself, Mr. Two Projects at Once. It's the one, the only, it's George Lynch. George, how are you, man?
I'm good. I've gotten, it just made me tired to hear you say all that. I'm just, damn, okay.
Well,
I guess it's a compliment.
Well, this is the second time in a row that I've talked to you where you've had two records out at once. You had the Lynch Mob, and I think KXM was out at one time, and then now you've got Lynch Mob and Shadowtrain. So it seems like you just don't do it the normal way.
I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I mean, I try to space my records out, so, my workload out so that everything is released kind of intelligently, not all on, piggybacking on top of each other. But, it's sometimes you can't plan for creativity, and projects sometimes don't conform to, your scheduling, so, things can take a lot longer or sometimes go a lot quicker than you anticipated, and things end up, that happens. We end up having two releases at the same time.
Sure.
Which I don't know if that's, maybe it's not a terrible thing, because then, fans will be like, well, you know what, that's kind of cool, I can go buy both records and get both flavors of whatever George is writing.
Sure. Well,
hopefully they're different,
Mm-hmm. And that is one of the cool things about, especially right now with this cycle, you've got the Lynch Mob record that is pretty quintessential what you do, what you're best known for, and then you've got Shadowtrain, which is, definitely experiments into some different directions, I'm assuming because it was written to match pieces for the movie, but it definitely takes some new twists and turns that I don't think you've ever done before.
Initially Shadowtrain, which is the band associated with the film Shadow Nation, which is not released yet, documentary film about Native Americans and music. Yes, this band is built to be the soundtrack for that film, and it's message driven. The songs are message driven, so the lyrics are vitally important, and the music is just a vehicle for the messaging. It's a political record, and I don't even want to say political. It's just about issues. I was thinking when I was writing, I was thinking in a whole different way than I normally think. I'm just not thinking, okay, write a cool riff,
right?
And that's the end of it, and put it together and get your three parts, arrange it, and give it to Oni or whoever it is, and let them do their thing. Shadowtrain came together much, much differently. Because we were writing and recording and playing during the process of making the film, and the band was involved in the process of making the film as well. And we're just traveling around, camping out, making our own food, living together for, weeks and months at a time, and dealing with the process of shooting the film and playing as well. And, then I was heavily involved in the writing of the lyrics, because it was so important to me that the words were right, and I was actually coming up with the melodies, and on this first disc, that's I wrote pretty much all those lyrics, and all those melodies, and Greg, of course, interpreted them beautifully. I'm not really a very good singer, so he sang it incredibly well in his own way, but it's the first time that I've done anything like that, and I didn't do it because I'm naturally gifted. I did it because it had to be done, and I cared so much about the project. So, Lynch Mob record, including this Rebel record, I approach much differently, much as I normally do, in the sense where it's my job to write the music, and I'll hand it over to the singer, and the singer paints the pictures and finishes the canvas, and waxes poetic, and hopefully and and comes up with the melodies and so forth. But what surprised me was only on this Rebel record is there's some similarities between the messaging in Shadowtrain, the political messaging, and a lot of the lyrics on the Rebel record that Tony came up with.
Sure.
Without any input from myself, really, other than just our normal conversations when we're together and, us having discussions about things, as we're touring or just hanging out. But I think he apparently must have took a lot of those things to heart and obviously has some convictions and beliefs of his own and expressed them very eloquently in a much better way than I could, because I think a really good lyricist / poet is going to write it in a way that he isn't preaching to you. He isn't just enumerating facts,
right,
or arguing, for a point of view, but saying it in a very kind of surreal kind of way that's beautiful to listen to and entertaining to listen to. And he did a very good job of that, and I was really surprised because we really hadn't talked about it. It just happened. I was like, wow, you really came from another place on like a lot of these lyrics. Not everything on the record is like that. But,
sure.
No, should it be, but it really surprised me in a good way. I was really
sure.
very happy that he did that.
Absolutely. Now, George, with Rebel, it's like you said, it definitely finds that spot between what Shadowtrain is, lyrically, and what you're best known for, musically, you specifically playing guitar. The one thing that's interesting to me, and it's not like it hasn't been there before, but it just seems like as you're progressing, you're developing more as a player this way, is more and more of that southern, I don't know what you'd call it, southern groove is entering your playing. Do you see that, and is that just the product of living in Arizona and being surrounded by that environment?
Well, I think from just a guitar player standpoint, I've been in recent years listening to a lot more country music and country players in particular. Mm-hmm. Pedal steel guys, and guys like Brad Paisley or Albert Lee, or Hank Williams, a third guitar player. I mean, these guys are just insane, and just the purity of the playing of some of the old, like the Muscle Shoals guys and the Nashville Cats and the Meters, and there's just all the really pure music. I mean, even R&B music, and soul music and funk music. I mean, I love all that stuff, and I listen to it analytically, and especially country players from the point of like potential evolution for myself as a player, because I think it's just leads beyond what I do in a rock context, and it's things that I would like to continue to learn from that genre and incorporate into my style. So, I've been playing with less distortion. I've been playing, making my guitars more challenging to play, heavier strings, and not as much gain, and that kind of thing. And that's just how I'm evolving as I get older. And as a player, I'm sure I like to think maybe. And I think it's a pure tone and a pure approach and more honest approach to my sound and my style.
Sure. And
it allows me to kind of grow, and or at least grow sideways, not forward.
Right.
And then again, at the same time, sort of going back to my roots, because I grew up with blues music and R&B music and soul music and funk music and folk music, and
right.
It was there was I was a guitar player before there was what we know as rock and roll even existed.
Mm-hmm.
So,
sure.
All those things start to re-express themselves, I think, as you get older.
Sure. Is that, especially with you having such diverse tastes, is that why you're constantly doing so many different projects? I mean, really, just in the last year, at least as far as what's been released, you've got Lynch Mob, you've got KXM, you've got the Sweet Lynch record, you've got Shadowtrain. I mean, that's a lot of music, but that's a lot of different styles for one musician to go and attack.
I think maybe I should do a box set and call it Whole Lot of Lynch.
There's certainly enough there.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's not like I sit down and plan this out. It's like in my little myopic world where I live. I'm just, I'm so passionate about not only music I listen to, but the music that's kind of floating around in my head. And as I said, I love all kinds of different stylistic or different genres and styles of music, and I would love to embed myself in those different genres and do them genuinely well and convincingly, because I'm passionate about it, not because I want to prove something or be, the all-encompassing musician guy or anything like that. Because, I'm doing this project called Unimob, and it's sort of an industrial project. I love that kind of music. I love the intensity of it. I just think it's brutal and it's beautiful and atmospheric and great grooves and all this kind of stuff. And your face is fun, and I love that stuff. And it doesn't really fit with Lynch Mob, and it doesn't fit with my other projects, so I just created one. That's really the simple, honest truth about it. And now this project I'm in the middle of right at the moment is called The Infidels, and I have been working on this off and on for some time with Pancho Tomaselli his bass player from Tower Power,
okay,
the world's greatest rhythm sections.
Sure.
And we've got Angela Moore from the singer from Fishbone.
Okay.
He's a genius, and that's just opened up multiple worlds to me, because I've now put myself in a place where I'm very much out of my wheelhouse, in my comfort zone.
Right.
Which I like that. So we were recording we just finished the recording, actually. It was done except for some vocals to finish, but it was all done in an old school boutique kind of R&B soul funk studio that's like walking back into 1975 or something.
Sure.
Walking into an Isley Brothers or an Al Green or a Santana session. It's insane. All tape, all old microphones, all old equipment. You're all goboed off. You're playing at the same time. Using big amps or big drum. It's all the gears. From the 50s, 60s, and 70s. It's just fantastic, and the music is very strange in a wonderful, wonderful way.
Excellent.
It's still primarily kind of a rock record, but there's a lot of other things going on, funk and soul and so forth, and even a little stoner rock and a little progressive stuff. It's just kind of a mishmash.
Sure.
It's got its own thing, and it's just mind-altering.
Right, definitely.
And it's so fun because of the challenge, and then you sit back and go, oh, look what we created. It's just so beautiful and so different. And I just cannot wait to hear people's reaction, which I'm sure some of it might be negative, which of course is inevitable, unfortunately. But, it just makes life worth living, and it makes doing what I do so much fun. And I know that's not about me, but hopefully in a world of 7 billion people, there's a good amount of people out there that are going to feel the same way we feel about it.
Right, definitely.
Dig it.
Certainly. Well, George, let me ask you one more about Shadowtrain before we run out of time here. I'm just curious because I've seen the same press that I'm sure you've read about yourself as far as this project and whatnot, but I haven't really seen anything that indicates why you decided to get so involved with making a documentary and what your passion is toward this topic. What was it that brought you to it, to where you've immersed a good amount of time in your career to building this documentary and a 2-record set and everything for this?
Well, to you, obviously, it looks as if I just kind of like decided to do this recently, and it took up some recent years in my life, and that's it. It's a kind of a isolated thing, but from my perspective, it's something that I've been involved in all my life, and from early days of sitting around, having political and intellectual and philosophical discussions with my family, which is part of what we did at the dinner table, and reading. I mean, reading is a big part of what we do. I've been taught to read. I'm, reading voraciously all my life, and took myself back to school and, took philosophy classes and history classes and political science classes and other things. And just self-taught,
Mm-hmm.
and caring, so, being an empathetic animal, I don't think all of us are, but I just happen to be wired that way, good or bad, that's just how I am. And so I have certain, political leanings and thoughts about, how humanity works and how the world operates. And I feel a compulsion and a responsibility to take the gift of music that I've been, dealt and have that somehow work for the good.
Sure.
If I can, and it's a challenge because coming out of Dawkins and then even Lynch Mob and this kind of a superficial world. I mean, it's fine, it's good. Just on a purely musical level, but I was, I grew up in an era of revolution. In the '60s, the Vietnam War and the Civil Rights Movement, and rock and roll was an outgrowth of that, an extension of that, and a voice for revolution and change and so forth. I grew up through the whole hippie movement, and I'm very sad when all that went away, when we thought the world was actually going to, something radically different was going to happen. The world was going to become a fair, more equitable, compassionate place, and the opposite happened, and it was just, it was probably the saddest thing that could ever happen, to any of us, for those in that generation, and we continue to live with that. And so I've spent the rest of my life trying to find a way to incorporate what I care about into what I do, and it's been a very big challenge, and I haven't found a way to do it successfully, and I think Shadowtrain is just the latest example of my best attempt to try to make those two things.
Excellent. Well, George, like we said, you have multiple projects out there. There's Lynch Mob with the brand new one, Rebel. There's, of course, this massive project, Shadowtrain, and the soon-to-be-released Shadow Nation documentary. So I figured what we would do is wrap this up with one of the Shadowtrain songs. So why don't you pick one and tell us a quick story about it to end this?
Oh, man. There's 18 songs on the record. The second CD is actually the prequel. It shows how we sort of evolved, and it's more eclectic. The first record is actually where we are now, where we've sort of evolved to. Mm-hmm. There's a variety of music on there. Really tough to pick one. And nothing is really an example of everything else, so I'm just going to go out on a limb and say, boy, I don't want to pick the wrong song. You want some pretty guitar playing in it?
Either guitar. I'll tell you that I like the song. My personal favorite on the record is what is it called? Sue. I'm not looking at it.
To Wake Up.
Yeah,
Wake Up.
Which is probably the most controversial of the record, but it's great.
Good for you. Good for you. Thank you very much. I mean, I'm sure I was going to hear all kinds of shit for that song, but that's the one that hits hardest. I mean, that's the one that tells the truth in the most obvious, straightforward way. It's Monty Smith, doing the spoken word thing. It's a friend of ours. There's some kind of a, program track. We had this program, a guy named Flash, that we worked with just on that song in particular.
Okay.
Really talented kid. So, I love that track. There's no guitar solo in it. It's not Lynch Mob. It's not Dawkins.
Right.
But if you'd be willing to say that, I would love for that to be heard.
Absolutely. Well, we'll do that right now.
Another one that actually is also very different and cool is his Trail of Tears, which I wrote with John Friedel,
Okay.
the American Indian movement, former American Indian movement leader, the spokesperson for the tribes during the second uprising, as they say, in the mid-'70s.
Sure.
A really historically significant, important guy in the American Indian movement and the community. And that's a beautiful track as well. But yeah, I would go with See What Go.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll go with them both. How's that? Let's check it out right now. This is a double shot of the brand new Shadowtrain. It's George Lynch right here on your Classic Metal Show.